I decided to try Roguestar Rescue because it joins action roguelike elements with tower defense elements, and these are two genres that I absolutely love. So let's dive into what's good about the game, what it could do better, and whether it deserves more attention than it's gotten because it's still a pretty obscure game. At its core, Roguestar Rescue has a Gungeon-like gameplay with additional tower defense elements. You fight through a series of levels, and each level has a set of randomized rooms. Once you enter a room, you must clear out all the enemies before you can move on to the next one. At the end of each level, you enter the boss room, and this is where the tower defense elements come in. You build up towers, traps, and barriers to slow down and prevent the enemies from attacking some objective that you're defending. After enough waves of enemies have spawned, the boss will spawn with a larger health bar, unique attacks, and moveset. Both normal enemies and the bosses have a bullet hell nature, and you'll often find yourself dodging, or as they call it in the game, jetpacking, through waves of projectiles while shooting back yourself. Still, despite this bullet hell nature, I wouldn't say the game feels super fast paced. It feels a little more casual, at least on the medium difficulty or normal that I played on. As you play through the game, you collect a series of weapons, some of which are more normal type guns, and others are more quirky or random. And there's no limit to the number of guns or weapons you can have. The game often forces you to use more than one weapon because each gun only has a relatively small amount of maximum ammo, and ammo drops are not exactly rare, but they're rare enough that you'll eventually run out of ammo with whatever your favorite weapon is, and you'll have to try a different one out. In addition to new weapons, you can find items that give you certain power-ups or synergies. So for example, you can get upgrades that allow your bullets to go through enemies, bounce off of walls, or light enemies on fire for additional damage. And there are also occasional weapon synergies as well, such as the time that I found two pistols and the game let me dual wield them, shoot them both at the same time. While you can find weapons and items in each level, you also return to a home base between levels where you can use coins that you get killing enemies to buy items, weapons, health, and more. Basically, you have a small shop between levels. Here you can also buy upgrades for your towers and traps for the more tower defense element in the game. And there are 4 different types of traps or towers you can place around the map when setting up for a boss fight. As a whole, I did like these tower defense elements, and as I mentioned before, it's one of the reasons that I tried this game in the first place, but it definitely feels like a +1 to the game at times. I think you could probably go through the whole game without placing any towers, and it wouldn't be that much harder, though admittedly I haven't tried that myself. Additionally, the number of towers you place is pretty limited, and you keep the same pool of towers across levels, meaning you have to conserve or not use all of your traps on each level in order to save some for the next. You can buy more towers in your home base between levels, but that leads me to one of the negatives of this game, which is that it's hard to focus on both the tower defense elements and action roguelite elements within a single given run. Because you only have so many coins, you kind of have to choose whether you want to buy more cool items, weapons, or focus on leveling up and buying more traps, towers, those kind of things. Obviously, you can do some of both on each run, and you probably will do some of both on each run, but it's hard to really explore the depth in both these mechanics at the same time. Also, because the bosses in the game have to walk down this fairly linear path from their spawn through your traps and towers to whatever objective you're defending, they're more simplistic mechanically than some other games. They're still fun, but it's not one of those games where you'll spend a bunch of time mastering bosses with their unique mechanics and movesets. The game does have co-op, both local and online, which is really great because I think some of the elements in this game, like the tower defense elements, feel much better with 2 players as opposed to 1. And there are a couple other smaller gameplay mechanics that I enjoyed, such as the rampage bar, being able to teleport across the map, some hidden secrets in the game, and certain quests or challenges you can find on each run. So for example, there's an NPC you can run across that gives you a trap challenge where you have to defend them using only traps and the turrets they provide you. So Roguestar Rescue has a lot of game mechanics in it, and I think it does all of them well, but I don't think it does any of them great. It's a very wide game with lots of fun things to explore, but each of the individual elements needs a little more depth to them. And really just the biggest flaw in the gameplay of Roguestar Rescue is that other action roguelites exist that have some similar core systems, but do them better. For example, if you want better synergies, look at a game like Isaac, and more obviously, this game has to compete with Gungeon, Nuclear Throne, and other bullet hell action roguelites that just have a slightly better bullet hell gameplay. Roguestar Rescue does have unique elements in it, such as tower defense elements, both local and online co-op, and I always enjoy playing through it. I'm not saying that it's bad or anything like that, but the core gameplay just needs a little something to take it from a decent roguelite, a good roguelite, to one of the greats. One thing I will say though that really impressed me was how the devs have improved the game since its launch. For example, they've greatly improved the bosses by giving them more interesting moves and mechanics. They've added some more unique upgrades and depths to the tower defense system, which started out fairly simplistic. And they've added a ton of new smaller features and tweaks that made the game just feel a lot better and more fun to play. They're also testing out a game mode right now called Survival Mode, which has the tower defense elements more integrated into the core gameplay, and you fight off infinite waves of enemies with the occasional boss fight sprinkled in. This is actually what I kind of thought the game would be in the first place, so I'm excited to see where they go in the future with both this game mode and everything else they've been adding to the game. As they keep improving it, the game really has a lot of potential. Now let's talk about RNG and randomness in Roguestar Rescue. And I like to talk about it because it's an important part of roguelites that should keep gameplay fresh if done well, but can be frustrating if done poorly. Overall, I wouldn't say randomness plays a big role in Roguestar Rescue. The only large area where it's really important are the role it plays in what drops you find and what stuff you can buy at the shop each round. This affects ammo drops and health drops, but mostly determines what weapons and items you can find to flesh out your build. It's a relatively large weapon pool, which is nice, so you usually get new weapons on each run that can be fun to experiment with, though some of them start to feel somewhat similar to each other after you played a while. In terms of the levels themselves, you have control over which levels you want to complete. So if you want to play certain areas with their specific themes and enemies, you can do that. In terms of variety within the levels themselves, RNG mostly matters for the map layout, but you'll occasionally find special rooms or event rooms that are more affected by randomness in regards to if you find them and which ones you do find. The different levels have different themes and different enemy types, as well as some unique interactive elements in the environment, such as in one map, one level, where you can spawn bees to attack enemies if you attack a beehive that's on the map. But I will say, as a whole, the levels don't feel that different from each other mechanically, so much as they feel different thematically with different colors and those kind of things in the background. Also, a more minor complaint, but I lost a ton of health falling down pits or gaps in the map. I think that their hitbox, or whatever you want to call it, is bigger than I expect, so I'm often close to the edge and I end up falling when I don't think I should. And it doesn't always register to me that it's a gap because the floor designs are very detailed and sometimes the gaps or holes in the floor kind of blend in. But as a whole, not a major issue with the game. So how is randomness in Roguestar Rescue? I think it only really affects weapons and items in an important way because you're given such an extreme degree of control over map selection that nothing else really important is heavily randomized. Now let's talk about progression in Roguestar Rescue, because in roguelites, progression is one of those things that should keep you playing run after run. In terms of horizontal progression, or progression that does not change the difficulty of the game in any way, you can unlock 6 total characters for different runs. Each character starts with slightly different weapons and items, but it's not a game that's really class focused. Each character basically just has a different starting place. Additionally, you can unlock new weapons and items as you play the game more, and they will show up in future runs. Basically, as you play the game more, you can unlock more stuff for the loot pool. And actually, unlike a lot of other games, I didn't feel like the new unlocks were overpowered or anything. So it wasn't one of those games where as you unlock more weapons, you feel more powerful because the new weapons are better. The weapons felt fairly balanced. And speaking of vertical progression, which is progression that makes the game easier or harder, you can level up each character and that persists across runs. You can upgrade their health, damage, accuracy, as well as a couple other traits. But it's also a little unclear how much these upgrades actually do. Some of them, like health for example, are pretty clear. You gain an extra pip of health every 5 levels, but others like damage are a little less clear because there's no numbers attached to it. Did leveling up my damage to the max give me an extra +5 damage or +50? I don't really know. Regardless, I didn't feel like these upgrades were that important, so it's not one of those games where you have to farm or grind out upgrades to feel powerful enough to actually beat the game. It's more of a nice extra progression element as opposed to something mandatory. There are also 3 different difficulty levels, so if you like the game easier or want a harder mode, that's there for you to fit your preference. As a whole, there are some unlocks in progression in Roguestar Rescue, and that adds some nice fun element between runs, but it's not super extensive, and it's not a super large focus of the game either, outside of the levels for each character, which again, are fun, but don't have a large impact on gameplay. But there is one other form of progression in Roguestar Rescue, and that's getting different endings to the game. If you select different levels, choose different options, you get a different story ending to the game, and that's a nice element, trying to unlock these different story endings after you can beat the game fairly reliably. And on that note, let's talk about the story in Roguestar Rescue. So Roguestar Rescue actually does have a decent amount of story to it. It's not a cross-run story game, so the story is contained within each run. It's not like Loop Hero or Hades, where the story spans across runs. In this game, you're trying to stop a rogue star, as the game calls it, from colliding with your galaxy or planets and destroying them. And of course, along the way, these aliens are trying to stop you on your mission, and so they keep fighting you while you try to do whatever it is you need to do to stop the rogue star. The game tells you the story through occasional cutscenes and dialogue with both enemies and allies. I liked the story in this game for what it was. It fleshed out the game a little bit and added some funny one-liners here and there. Your choices of what levels to complete as well as other more explicit choices in the game affect the ending, which was a nice little mechanic to add on. I would say this story is a great +1 to the game, though it's probably not something that would draw you into the game if you weren't otherwise interested. Also, I actually quite like the music of the game. I thought it really fit the levels well. If you're into that kind of NES retro style music, you might also enjoy it yourself. So what's my verdict on Roguestar Rescue? Is it worth picking up? As a whole, I think the game is good, but not top tier. It does a lot of things well, but it doesn't do anything amazing in a really standout way. I enjoyed the tower defense elements for what they were, and the core gameplay is still fun. Also, it's the only action roguelite that I've seen with both online and couch co-op, so if you're looking for that feature, it's really great for that. But while I always had fun playing it, Roguestar Rescue never really hooked me like some other games have. And really the biggest downside of Roguestar Rescue is that other games like Gungeon and Nuclear Throne do the same core gameplay just a little better. Still, if you're looking for a new bullet hell action roguelite, or an action roguelite that does things a little different, adds some new mechanics, it might still be worth checking out. Also, developers have been super active with improving the game and adding updates, so this game could definitely reach its full potential at some point in the future. Please like this video to help me on the algorithm, and thanks for watching.